Hello and welcome to episode 15, Her Finance Talk. My name is Sue Diamond and I'm your host, and our goal here is to help women create a better relationship with their money so you can live your best life. So thanks for joining us and investing in your financial well-being. Her Finance Talk is brought to you by the Her Finance Club. And our mission is to socialize the idea that it's okay for women to talk about money, because knowledge is power, and when that knowledge helps you become more independent, it translates to empowerment. Women empowering women is a mantra that we love to live by, and one that has helped to inspire women for decades. Where would we be without each other? So let me welcome our guest today, Amelia Meisenheimer, business entrepreneur, real estate broker and investor, property manager, and licensed in all things housing. And she's currently in the midst of starting a new business as a coach with an emphasis on real estate investments. So thank you for joining us today, Amelia.
Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate being here.
Likewise. So I'm just going to share a little bit about you, and then we'll move on to you expanding on that. But Amelia describes herself as growing up talking about money and had her first bank account at 6 years old. And she also remembers writing that first check for her new mountain bike. And you'll never guess how old she was. She was 12 when she wrote her first check. So Amelia started helping out in the family business, the family real estate business, as a small child. Some examples you'd shared with me were, you'd be stamping floor plans, cleaning rentals, answering phones, which led to the mindset that, if you work hard, that may equal more money, which you came to later understand that isn't always true. So Amelia read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And if you haven't read that yet, that should be number one on your reading list when it comes to finances. So she read it in high school, and that's what she indicated really opened her eyes to passive income and the different types of work pay relationships that there are in the world. And that started her on the concept of passive income. She chose to get into real estate because that was what she was raised around. So today's topic is lessons from a woman serial entrepreneur and real estate investor. And one of the reasons I invited Amelia here today is because what we've been seeing, during the course of COVID, we know that around, I think it was 1.8 million of the 5 million women who lost their jobs in 2020 have yet to return. We also know that 1 out of 4 women are considering leaving corporate. And we're also hearing from business coaches that they're seeing a considerable increase in registration for women launching new businesses. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for Amelia to come and share her story and experiences with our listeners today, so that you can benefit from, what she's learned and possibly avoid some of the mistakes that she made along the way if you are traveling that road and considering becoming an entrepreneur. So I'm going to hand over to you, Amelia, to open up this conversation and expand on this amazing childhood, talking openly about business, investments, and money.
I never realized it was such a unique thing. When you're raised that way, that's just the only way you know how. You don't know any different. So as I've gotten older, I really realized how unique my upbringing was, and also how beneficial it has been to me over the course of my life. Like I said, my parents moved back to town and they started selling mobile homes. And my mother will still to this day say, I never in my life thought I was going to make a living selling mobile homes, but here we are, and it's been a very good life. So I think a lot of that too, you just start with something and you never know where it's going to end up, but you start picking away at it and it evolves and evolves and evolves into a huge world that you never thought was possible. But I was thankful my parents always kept us in with the conversations. I remember sitting at the dinner table discussing CD interest rates and issues with the health team members, and staffing issues or problems or theft in the business, or tenants not paying their rent. I went on more than one collection call with my parents, trying to go knock on doors collecting rent. So it was a very eye-opening experience as a child that I am thankful for. But as like you mentioned, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I really got into learning about different kinds of income, and that I always wanted to be a doctor. And that book really opened my eyes up that doctors get paid by showing up. And I don't always want to show up. I might want to make some money sitting on a beach. And that's when I really started understanding more about business owners. And then I saw, when you're a child going on family vacation, you don't think anything of it. And then all of a sudden it clicked as I got older. I'm like, oh, by owning the business, you can afford to go on different vacations, or the team is still working while you're gone. Right. And opportunities like that. And that has been huge for my realization of how I wanted to live my life. But I got into real estate. I had my first opportunity in college, and I didn't want to do it because I was a college kid and I wasn't going to put up with a rent house. And Susan asked me some really great questions. And one of them was, what is one of my biggest financial regrets? And as I look back and think on things, that is probably the biggest recurrence, is things I wish I would have done. Because with real estate, the sooner you start, the sooner that mortgage gets paid off, the sooner that 10-year note becomes mature, the sooner anything happens. I remember sitting at a bar with friends in 2017 talking about cryptocurrency, and we were joking because one guy was sitting there telling us about it, and we're like, you go buy drinks with your little keychain wallet. And he's like, well, it doesn't work that way. And we're like, come on now, man. And I really wish I would have bought some cryptocurrency back in 2017. So as I think, a lot of the things was, I wish I would have bought that first rent house when I was in college. I wish I would have bought that cryptocurrency. So a lot of this stuff, the sooner you get started, the sooner it pays off, and the sooner that income starts. And it's the same with life, right? You live life, and you're going to hopefully live every day, and you can make the most of it or not. But starting scary, hard things is a tough way, but it's also an exciting way to push your boundaries and to jump into something new. And real estate is a fun new category. And, there's always these horror stories, right? The tenant that caught the house on fire, or they left it trash, they didn't pay rent for a year, and it doesn't matter what you do in life. You're going to have one of those. I say 1 in 10. You're going to have one of those tenants. You're going to have 10, you're going to have 9 great ones, and you're going to have one bad one. Except you don't know if that bad one's going to be your first tenant or your 10th tenant, but that's going to be in there. And that's just part of the trade. But there's so many different things that you can do to help protect yourself against that, to mitigate any risks on that. And it could be knocking on doors, asking where the rent money is, if that's the level of involvement you want to get into. So there's a lot of different things that can protect you in the real estate process.
Right. And I think it gets back to, any aspect of investing when we think about diversification, right? So I think you had mentioned to me that, one house can be a challenge if you're doing a rental, but when you have 5, then that helps balance it out. Like you say, if there is that tenant that's not good about paying, or the something happens with the physical plant. I like to compare it also to, when you're looking at the stock market, don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, right? You need to kind of diversify it a little bit. So you have the times where something does crop up that, you weren't planning, that it can help you kind of move forward. And I think it's interesting. I love talking about this because I think one of the things that I hear all the time in terms of, it's kind of like an oxymoron, I think, about it when we talk about women and them being risk averse. So we're hearing about all these women who are creating their own businesses, well, there's nothing more riskier than kind of transitioning from, I guess, your weekly payment or your monthly payment that that's coming in, and then transitioning to doing a business and then looking at ebbs and flows. But then I look at the stock market and I hear all the time, the same women are risk averse when it comes to investing. But again, it's like we tend to think about money differently in terms of, what we use it for, because it's a tool to help us achieve what's most important to us. But I think one of the things that it's important for women to hear about is whether it's investing in the stock market, whether it's investing in real estate, that investing is about making your money work for you, right? So as you mentioned earlier as well, the experience of being with your family and you're away on holiday and knowing that you can still make money because there's somebody else there working on it for you. So I always like to say, you've got to make every dollar work for you, or work as hard as you work for your money, because that's really important. And I think sometimes a lot of women that I speak with kind of worry about, well, if I put it in real estate and something happens with the house, or if I put it in the stock market, what if the market goes down? And so I don't know if you want to speak a little more about that.
I think, I think women think a lot more than men do on a lot of this stuff, because we really do consider the what if scenarios. I think that's one of the benefit of a female. I think it's that nurturing mindset that, what happens if my husband passes away, or I do get fired, or things, we always think about that backup plan. And I think it also makes us a lot of better business decision makers in a lot of ways because of that. But considering that, especially making a new investment, or, real estate can have a lot of debt to it. Yeah. We are in a very rural market. I bought my last house for $40,000. It does exist in this world still, but if you're in a different market and all of a sudden you're paying $400,000 for a property, that's a whole different level of stress that you can put yourself on. And then, like you mentioned, that those first 5 rentals are the hardest, because when you have one rent property and one mortgage payment due, and that tenant isn't there paying your rent, then all of a sudden you're paying that mortgage payment in full. Once you start getting a couple properties built up, and it could be multi-family, so different units in an apartment complex, or there's a lot of ways to build that. But all of a sudden you might have 4 units that are rented, and they're all having a little bit of extra cash flow. They help cover those expenses for that 5th one, whether it's a vacancy or a bad tenant, or COVID strikes again, whatever happens, that you do need that plan. And the one thing with real estate is getting that ball rolling and getting that cushion built so that you do have that, because it's going to come. Just like the stock market is going to have a dip. Cryptocurrency is going to fall. Like, it's just the cycle of life. It comes up and it goes down.
Yeah. I know just recently I had 2 people say, oh my goodness, I keep looking at my stocks and they're going down. Should I, get rid of them right now? And it's like, kind of explaining that, actually, this is the ideal time to buy, because everything's on sale. So like you say, if you do a comparison, there's times where you can buy houses, a good price, and then other times that it's really expensive. So, and we know statistic wise across the years, I know with the stock market, it's typically between 7 and 8%, over a 20-year period. So it's like, the last thing you want to do is get rid of the stuff, and then you have to go back and buy again, and you're buying at a higher price again.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's something that's very misunderstood.
Well, and the same goes for housing. My mom, she lived in Austin when she was a kid, or, in college, and they bought a house. It was on the outskirts of Austin, and, kind of a little rinky dinky house. Well, she went back 2 years ago, and the house is now in prime real estate area. All the neighboring houses are worth over $1 million. And it was like, Mom, I really wish you would have kept, held onto that house. but we also have to be respectful. From her going into college to now in her late 60s, she's had a lot of life experiences that probably wouldn't be realistic for her to have kept that house for the last 40
Right.
years. And I think that's part of honoring the transition of natural stages of life, that, you know, you're going to have divorces or marriages or deaths or things like that, that will change how you evaluate your finances. But it's finding those assets, whatever they may be, that help guide you through that. And like real estate has a great tax benefits, you know, and so that's a whole different kind of ball game, that a lot of people are really intimidated by taxes and talking about taxes and speaking of, you know, how to quote unquote play the game, right? It's one tax code book. The rich play by the same code book that the poor plays by. And it just, you know, we all are on that same book. So how do we take that power back and take those advantages? And for me, real estate's been a huge part of that, is being able to play the tax game and the depreciation and all those different things that most people don't get excited about. But I always find it fascinating to keep a little extra money back from the IRS.
All right. Well, I also I worked for nonprofits for a number of years on the development side. So I hear a lot of my discussions were with philanthropists and donors, and it was always about, you know, how to be a philanthropist and did you know you could. And the assumption was always, oh, you've got the first thing that would come to mind would be Bill Gates and Warren Buffett when you talk about philanthropy. And I'm like, you know what? Do you pay taxes? And they're like, yes. So I said, well, you are actually giving to the largest, I guess, charity in the world, which is the US Treasury, because they make a determination. A portion of your taxes that you're paying goes to nonprofits. So would you rather make the decision yourself and identify something that's near and dearer to your heart and in your community to redirect those monies? Or are you quite happy being, you know, an unintentional philanthropist and letting the government spend the money where they see fit rather than you? And
right.
I always find that, you know, it's a big eye opener. People are like, oh, I never thought about it that way before.
No, and again, you talk about money, and you know those parts of the conversation rarely come up. You know, it's that working more hours, making it. But you know, one of the great sayings that I always grew up with was, it's not how much you make, it's how much you don't spend. So for every dollar that you could save by, you know, a depreciation or donating or, you know, things like that, it's helpful. And you get to control where that money goes versus giving it to the government, and they dictate where it's best spent. So I do think there's a lot of power in that.
Right. So just to expand a little more on, I guess, mindset. I mean, I've spoken to you about this before. I come from the philosophy that money speaks two languages. So, you know, we got the language of basic math first, you know, addition, subtraction. You have it, you utilize, you make it, use of it, and then you save it. So, but then we've also got this secret language of money, right? Our habits and patterns of employing money to manage, whether it be our moods, our self-esteem, as well as a tool for control and competition. So we know that, you know, money is much more than just currency, because it's layered with connotations that frequently conflict as we engage with it. And of course, I think, you know, you, as you'd said, you were very fortunate and you didn't realize at the time that you were in an environment that wasn't the norm growing up, and talking about money and experiencing the family business. Whereas many of us, and I come across this a lot with women, it's like, well, no one ever talked to me about money. I never learned about money. It wasn't talked about at home or when I went to school. And the result of that, in many instances, is that it's negatively impacted their money beliefs, which affects, you know, the results with money. So and especially so when it comes to women and investing. But you had mentioned as part of kind of your little bio you shared with me that that the mindset in terms of hard work equals more money. So what kind of led you know, later on you realized that this wasn't totally true. So how did you get on that path?
You know, you hit on a lot that's very powerful in that. And I have gone through probably every cycle of that. I've had myself in credit card debt and I've dug myself out. I've joked before that I'm the brokest rich person that I've ever met, because I didn't place the value on money. We always learned about it growing up as a tool. You know, it's a transactional, it's a transactional thing that gets you from kind of point A to point B, but never really the mindset of it. So really growing up in kind of my later college years and early, you know, professional years, that mindset of respecting money, embracing money, and having the kind of the affirmations that go along with it to support that mindset. Because you can have a lot of money and you can also be very broke. But I worked for a corporate Fortune 500 company, and I was working a lot of hours and I was doing a lot and I was on salary. And that's when I learned that you can be excellent, but you're still kind of capped by your salary. And that was a big trigger for me that got me into the commission world of going back into real estate. So then I played the game of real estate, which I love being a realtor. I love helping people buy properties. And that's kind of what also got me into my coaching was, you know, you control your own destiny that way. So when I had a big trip coming up or things like that, I needed some extra money, I would get those extra real estate deals. And when you have that mindset of it will come and it will work out and it will, you know, the universe kind of takes care of me, those deals always came, that money always came. But then you get into that kind of yo-yo effect. We call it the Anaconda Effect. You get a big group of money and then you stop doing the things that you needed to do in real estate. And then that's when it really reinforced this passive income side of it, because real estate is, if you're not out actively selling houses, you're not making any money. And going through those different scenarios of working for a paycheck, which was nice, because if I was a mediocre person or if I was the best person, I made the same money. And then you got real estate, which is all commission. So the better I was, the more money I got, but then I'm exhausting myself. And there's a balance for quality of life and hard work and being successful and being financially well off is not, you've got to be intentional. I don't want to say it's hard work, but I think it's more intentionality with your actions, with your spending habits, with, like you mentioned, that emotional spending, or what are you avoiding, and really being honest with yourself about, why am I on Amazon right now? Or what am I doing with this? Because those things are indicators to what we're either consciously or unconsciously hiding from and not wanting to deal with in our mindset.
Yeah, well, unconsciously, I think, because neuroscientists are saying 90 to 95% of our beliefs, which create our behaviors, are unconscious. And it comes from that money mindset, which we get from our money story, which comes from when we grow up. So yeah, it's for me, I like to refer to myself sometimes as a money story mentor, because for me, that's the foundation for building any type of wealth. You've got to know and understand your story, which will heighten your beliefs, and then you'll know, okay, well, are these behaviors, you know, am I doing stuff that's creating good results with my money, or am I doing stuff that's sabotaging my ability to generate more wealth? And, you know, it's really important to take a step back and look at that. But I know we're kind of coming down to the time frame. So do you just want to share quickly in terms of, you shared a little bit about, so you're starting this new business. So what made you to decide to become a coach and go down that road?
Well, I recently had a lot of life changes. So I got married a couple months ago and I relocated. So a lot of it was dictated by my external circumstances, but I ended up selling. I had a real estate and a property management company. I ended up selling my companies, and I was being the trophy wife for a little bit. And I decided that I better keep myself entertained, or I'll be doing all the spending and my husband won't be very happy with me. And so I really enjoy helping people begin with real estate. As a realtor, I always enjoyed working with investors because it's a game. And I like the game. It's a numbers game. Does this investment work? What's your long-term strategy? Are you wanting, single family, multifamily, commercial, a little bit of everything? Then there's passive ways to invest in real estate too, by doing the REITs, or, you can get involved with syndication. There's so many ways that a person is open to if they want to. And so my goal as we're starting this real estate coaching is helping people identify what they're comfortable with, what level of involvement do they want? Do they want to be knocking on doors, or do they want to hire somebody else to go do those things for them? And walking them through that process, including how do you get financing? Where do I find deals? How do I analyze a deal? What's a good number? What's a bad number? And we all have different standards. What my number is not the same as your number. And helping you, whoever you are, create a personalized approach to start your real estate investment. And then you do it once, and then you do it twice, and then you do it 4, 5, 6, 20, however many times, and at whatever speed you want, and to build that diversification in your life.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, again, today it's really important for women to kind of understand the different opportunities when it comes to diversifying and how you can build your wealth, especially since we've got the greatest generational transfer of wealth started in 2016, and it's forecast to be north of like 41 trillion, and 70% of that money is going to belong to women. So, I guess the moral of the story is, if you can't manage $1,000 right now, you're not going to be able to manage 10,000 or 100,000. So it's really important to start educating yourself in this arena, because from my perspective, everybody has the opportunity to rewrite their money story so they can get on the right path and, create financial well-being for themselves and their family.
No, you're exactly right. And it's exciting. And one thing with real estate too, we are humans, we need shelter. And I think, as you talk about that generational shift of wealth, so much of it is in shelter, because there's so many people who cannot understand home ownership. They don't want the responsibilities. They just want to pay their rent and call somebody when their water heater breaks. So understanding that and being willing to take that extra step, I think is huge for the future, because it's a unique shift going on right now.
It is.
It's exciting.
Well, it is. And you know what? I could sit here and talk to you for hours about this stuff, but unfortunately, we're kind of at our time. So I wanted to say thank you, Amelia, for sharing your story and your expertise. It's been a pleasure. And where can our listeners find you?
Right now, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. It's Amelia Meisenheimer. Last name is Meisenheimer. I always wanted a shorter last name, and I did not do very good on that one. So I was joking with my husband, I need to come up with like a pen name that's easier to pronounce and remember. But LinkedIn's the best spot for now, and then it'll be linked up to my website and where you can find me and how to get started on your investment career path.
Okay.
Side hustle, whatever.
And I will share that in the show notes, so our listeners can check for that. So I just wanted to say thank you again. Whoops, that's the timer going off in the background there. It's not stopping. All right. So take the time to remind everybody the Her Finance Talk is brought to you by the Her Finance Club, and our goal is to inspire 1 million women to start the money conversation, whether it be with spouse, friends, colleagues, because knowledge is power. And when knowledge helps you become more independent, it translates to your empowerment. Just as a reminder, if you need help on your financial journey, please join our private Facebook community where you can get access to networking with like-minded women, support, and financial wellness content. So thank you again to our listeners for taking time from your busy schedules to join us. And don't forget to subscribe, because we love hearing from our listeners. So please feel free to share and comment. So until the next time, here's to your financial well-being. Bye.